Hi, I'm Wendy Stapleton and welcome to Wrokdown, coming to you live from Musicland. Well, can you believe it? Wrokdown has been going for 7 years. I can't believe that myself, but it has. And I had the pleasure of interviewing my special guest this evening at the very beginning of Wrokdown. One of the best voices, seriously one of the best voices in Australia. The face of a band called The Group in the 60s. Serious voice, serious gorge face. And guess what? Nothing's changed. Would you welcome Mr. Ronnie Charles?
Thank you.
It's scary, isn't it? We were saying it 7 years ago.
It just keeps accelerating.
I know. Oh, well, we're all here. It's all good.
That's right.
Ronnie, of course, the Jackson Kings was the very first band that you were in. You're only a baby. What,
That's
15,
right.
16?
17, yeah. 17.
The Jackson Kings were doing gigs around Melbourne in the early 60s?
They were. I joined the Jackson Kings. They actually already had a record deal with CBS, which coincidentally was the same label as The Group. And I joined them about June 66, and their singer had left for some reason. And they were sort of a part-time band, really. Everyone had day jobs, and as a lot of bands did then. And we did the Garrison on Friday nights. And then that shifted to Sunday night, and in August of 66, The Group came in on the Sunday night to have a bit of a drink up for Peter McKetty, who was leaving the group, the former lead singer.
Was he offered something?
No, he was
to go to, or he's just had
going-
enough?
He was doing uni. He was going to do industrial science and going to London, and I think chasing an ex-girlfriend over there as well. But anyway, he was leaving, and they had Don Moody lined up to take his place as a sort of rhythm guitarist singer. But when they heard the Jackson Kings, they were a bit taken with, particularly with the way Brian Cadd, who
We're talking about Brian Cadd because you and Brian were in the Jackson Kings.
Yeah, and Brian had been in the Jackson Kings for a couple of years. And so they asked us both over to have a chat about joining the band, which was a big decision, especially for Brian, because he had a big day job, a good one. And but I'd only been out.
Cadd had a job?
Yeah, he had a job. And
Thought
something
Caddy's
to do
job
with
was drinking
accountancy.
red wine.
Yeah, and something to do with accountancy, which sort of fits too. And so they asked to come over, and we chatted and had a jam, and that was it. I was just turned 18.
And you were the face of the group?
Well, big shoes to fill, because the old group were actually quite a popular band in Melbourne, and at Opus and a few of the venues. In fact, the original group were on the front page of the very first Go set, and they opened the Thumping Tum.
Wow.
So they were in a very established band. So, you know, that was probably one of the reasons we chose for the first single a cover of a Solomon Burke song called Said I Was Sorry. Because that had a kind of feel of what the old group was about, and we didn't want to lose that audience.
Yeah.
And it was something we had to do quickly.
The fans out too.
But during that time, our manager, who also managed the Loved Ones, they had just also worked at the Garrison, because we were managed by the manager, the owner of the Garrison, and he also managed the Loved Ones.
Was that Peter McKennell?
Yeah. And yeah, so it just seemed like a good fit. And one of the things that inspired Woman You're Breaking Me, because I guess that's where we'll go from here, is the fact that when we heard the Loved One, it was so, because the Loved Ones were sort of a bit like the group. They mostly did sort of old R&B covers of not covers so much of popular songs, but sort of old R&B stuff, the kind of stuff that, say, the Stones and Them and all those bands were doing. And we realised when we heard the Loved One that we would have to come up with something that was definitively the sound of the band, because that's what the loved one was for the loved ones.
For the loved ones.
And when we recorded Woman You're Breaking Me, we actually didn't have a top line for it. It was really just a rhythm idea, which was dun 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 dun. And there were about 2 or 3 melodies got floated around, and it was Peter McHeddy who, just before he left, no, actually he'd come back for a visit, it must have been about a year after he'd gone over, came back from England, and he said, and he'd seen the band, and he said, no, you've got to do something that's more open and a bit sort of like, say, The Who, something that's got, a real sort of pushy vocal. And that inspired the idea. In fact, I think it was Pete who said, what about something like, I said to her. And
well, that was very generous of him, wasn't it?
We took that idea from that. The chorus was already kind of there, but it didn't really have a lyric. So we kind of fluked that one, and
but it was a massive hit.
And it was sort of written the week before it was put down, the top line.
Massive hit, and of course.
Well, it won us Battle of the Sounds, because when it was in the top. It was number 2, number 3 when White a Shade of Pale and All You Need Is Love was 1 and 2.
So Ronnie, when you won the Battle of the Sounds, as a lot of bands did, was part of your prize for winning a trip to England?
That's the reason you went in.
And that's why everybody wanted to go.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest is the gorgeous Mr. Ronnie Charles. Oh. You see, some people just get more gorgeous. Jenny's going to come up here and smack me. Leave him alone, leave him alone. Okay, Ronnie, your band, the group, won the Battle of the Sounds.
Yeah, so we were off to England.
Off to England, it was everyone's dream, of course.
Well, the group had actually saved a bit of money, so we went over.
How did you do that?
Well, because of the old group, who also were very popular amongst the sort of social set and a bit of corporate stuff that happened even in the 60s. And we used to do a lot of gigs even through the week, a lot of private gigs and things like that. So we actually had a pretty good purse by the time we actually got on the boat. You know that
you're probably one of the only bands that did?
Well, that thanks to Pete.
Pete McKenna, yeah.
So when we went over there, we from talking to other people who'd been over, we bought ourselves a transit van and a PA and found an agent and actually started working. And the group played in the first 2 months of the Playboy Club opening, and we played 2 weeks there and had visitors like Ringo Starr and people like that, and his entourage of sort of a dozen people and things, going in there for drinks and a bit of a bop. And I remember nudging the band and saying, Ringo's tapping his foot to our song.
As long as he wasn't singing.
Yeah, that's right. So, so we worked up and down the M1 and did all those things. And we did the Marquee Club, and we went to Germany and did a TV show over there, because a record called Nightlife that the group had, which was a follow-up single to Woman You're Breaking Me, that charted in Germany. But we were in the wrong country, because the group had a bit of chart success with Woman You're Breaking Me in the States. But going to America in those days was very difficult.
Yep.
Really,
and you're not the first
really
person
hard.
actually to say that.
It was really
hard. So many people said that they thought they should have gone to the States.
Yeah, well, we all should have. But, it just wasn't to be. And the only artist, in fact, was Lynn Randall, who ever kind of went in that era. And sort of, I mean, Chow Baby is a classic example of it, just put it on a run.
We love that song, don't we?
It's a great song. And that was recorded in the States, and when you listen to it, it sounds like it's just fantastic.
It's
because
fabulous.
We were so far behind the 8-ball in recording in those days, especially in that middle part of the 60s.
The other irony is the fact that when you listen to Brian Cadd's later songs, they're so American.
Oh, absolutely.
They're so American sounding, and you think, why why didn't you all just think... Russell Morris said the same thing.
Yep.
He said that when he was in England, he was sitting there thinking, I've made the wrong decision, I should have gone to the States.
Well, and people like
But it
Max,
wasn't
people
really
like Max
open, was
Merritt,
it?
Well, it was just really hard to get a green card there. And they were really tough about anyone just visiting. If you had a guitar in your hand or anything like that, you were going to the work there, you know. And no, it was really tough to get into the States. In fact, I never got to the States till about 75. Mm. But anyway...
You all came home?
The group came back, and after, you know, we recorded Such a Lovely Way, but I think we'd sort of run out of steam by then. The band had done the full circle, and especially for Max, Ross and Richard Wright, who had been in the first incarnation of the group, and they were sort of thinking guys who you know, they weren't just going to be in a rock band all their lives. So Brian and Don went off and formed Axiom, and I did a couple of solo records, but in my mind, I just wanted to go back to London. Because what I'd experienced there at 19 years of age, you can imagine, it was like going from Ballarat to Melbourne. It was a big thing. It was massive. Yeah. And so with the little band I had called Honky Tonk, we got on the ship and played our passage, so to speak, and went over and settled down there. I was thinking maybe I'd stay there for maybe 2 or 3 years, give it a really good shot, and ended up staying there for 15. We basically knew that we had to sort of knuckle down and just get into writing. I knew nobody. There were 1 or 2 contacts I had, but things between 1968, when the group were there, and the end of 1970, beginning of 71, in England had changed too. And, you know, the 2 or 3 contacts I had were really not worth much.
In what way had it changed, like the actual whole style of music?
Well, they lost pirate radio, which meant that all they had was BBC One, and unless Terry Wogan played your record, and you can imagine it's like, no offence to Bert Newton, but it's sort of like, it's that sort of audience. And although they had other shows during the day with Blackmore and those, you know, the more sort of pop things, the whole English scene moved from the sort of Hendrix Traffic thing to pop singles.
So the whole scene changed? Yeah,
it just became much tighter. And later on, I mean, just to jump forward a bit, I mean, the whole reason New Wave happened in the mid-70s was through the pure frustration of artists not being able to get their stuff released. And there was one classic example of Elvis Costello outside a big music convention in Park Lane, playing guitar on the street in front of the execs as they walked out to
get their attention.
And say, hey, there's plenty
we're
of
here, but
new talent,
no one's taking
new
any
talent.
notice.
And it was small labels that got new wave and punk music going, because they would take the risk, but the big record labels wouldn't. However, I was very lucky because I met a guy, and this is going back to say 73, after being there a couple of years, called Kim Fowley, who I met at a bar called the Pheasantry through a friend, and my friend had obviously said, oh, Ron's an old rock star from Australia, blah, blah, blah. And he was very interested because he had just worked on the Daddy Cool stuff for America. Oh. And he said, bring me a tape. And I brought him a tape of this stuff I'd been demoing and the stuff I'd been writing. And he got us a deal with Warner Brothers in 2 weeks after we'd been trying for a couple of years. And Lou Reisner was the producer that Warner Brothers gave us. We did that album. And then Lou put me in Tommy, because they did a stage. Lou Reisner did the Tommy album with the London Symphony with the big silver ball on the front with Rod Stewart on it and a few other people, Ringo Starr. And he repeated that the following year, which was the year that he'd produced the band that I was in called Atlas. And he said, Ronnie, he said, I need someone to do Richie Havens because he can't do it. So for 2 nights, I was up there with Roger Daltrey and everyone doing a song with the London Symphony.
We're going to take a short break.
Okay.
We have the beautiful Ronnie Charles here, and we're going to hear much more about this because it's all been remastered.
I've just remastered
it.
There's a story attached to that.
What we're going to do now is, of course, you know, gorgeous Mick Pealing. We all know Mickey Pealing.
We all know Mick.
This is a little segment called Micks Picks.
Hi Wrokdowners, welcome back to Micks Picks, and today's pick is Nicky Nichols and a new CD, Bridesmaid. Now I've known Nikki for a long time, and you probably know her as well as singer with probably a lot of kind of cover bands and backup singer as well to people like John Farnham. And in fact, the Whispering Jack album, if you remember, has John Farnham's face and the back of a lady's head, and John Farnham is whispering in the lady's ear. That is Nicky Nichols. I bet you did not know that. Anyway, Nicky's got this fantastic new album out, and it's from the Brady production company, which were involved with John Farnham, etc., etc. So you would probably assume, without listening to it, that it would probably have that kind of sound. But I was pleasantly surprised to hear some nice gritty R&B on this. Like the opening track Money, which Nikki in fact wrote, and it's a corker, and it goes on with some terrific tracks that she has written herself, and I'm really proud of her for doing so. When you come to the title track Bridesmaid, be ready for another surprise because it is an absolute corker. Check it out for some great local music. This is a beauty, Nicky Nichols and Bridesmaid.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. Well, it's that time of the night. It's the gorgeous girl around about town, or out and about, I should say, the beautiful Soozie Pinder.
Hello, Miss Wendy.
I do get glitter envy.
I didn't know if I had enough on tonight, darling.
Oh, I don't think you have.
I got a glitter watch, and Ronnie Charles had something to do with this glitter watch. We went to a luncheon over at the MCG, and it was the business of winning, and Ronnie said, oh, that watch would be great as for my friend on her table, and I won second prize, and Brendan Mason won first prize from Madeleine. He won a TV and I won the watch. So thank you, Ronnie Charles. You're at my table, my good luck charm.
So who is our interview tonight?
You might know this gorgeous man, and he is known to a lot of people around town, and he's one of the finest musicians that you will know, Pip Joyce.
I know Pip.
You know Pip Joyce. Now,
Is
Pip
here yet?
Where's Pip? Pip? Is he over the back? Ah, there he is. This guy over here. Now,
He has the most expensive fish in the world, by the way.
he does, the most famous fish.
We'll go into that later.
Pip,
Another story.
Pip is a musician that you will have heard play. You may not know that you have. He's backed everyone from
We've
Glenn
worked together.
Shorrock, Wendy.
He hasn't backed. We've worked together a lot of times with Willie and Frank Holden, haven't we, Pip?
Yeah.
It's all good. So
And
this is
Pip-
all about you, darling.
Pip was actually in a lineup of Mick Pealing's Ideals. Yes, which I didn't know that until after the interview, so I couldn't sort of throw that one in. But Pip Joyce released the most amazing album. She Who Must Be Obeyed and I and LJ went along. We filmed the CD launch. I am absolutely over the moon about this album. They are songs that his brother, who has passed on, Gerry, bless you, Gerry, because I know you're in the room tonight. And Pip honoured his brother's memory by recording all of his music and a couple of songs that Pip had written. It is an awesome CD, and he's an awesome human being. And I love you, Pip, and we've got an interview up there. So will we have a look?
Let's do it.
There's Pip and Meg. Hey, Pip.
Hey, Suze.
How did it all start for you?
How did it all start for me? When I was about 8, I got interested in music by my older brother Gerry. He played me the Beatles and Stones, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young, Frank Zappa even. And then I was going to be a drummer. From the age of 8 till 10, I wanted to play drums. I was going to be the next best drummer in the world. And with timing like mine, that wouldn't have probably worked out too good. But so then Gerry got a guitar, and I got interested in guitar. So he taught me a few things on guitar, and that was it. I just loved music from then on. Watched the old pop shows, turning on with Baby John.
Maybe John
Commotion.
Burgess, was it?
Yeah, yeah. And
Commotion. I wanted to be a commotion
GTK,
dancer. Did you ever do
happening
those
70s?
dances? Yeah.
No, I didn't do them.
I did.
Yeah. What, the Sharpie dance?
No, the commotion dance.
Oh,
that
the
was
commotion
before.
dance.
I still do the Sharpie dance.
In the 60s
Yeah.
dresses and
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
The minis, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a look too, wasn't it?
That was a good look. See, I'm still channeling it. I haven't gotten out of the
Never
60s.
let it go, Suze. So, yeah, that was it. So, just kept playing, started playing, having bands and things, and haven't looked back, really. Haven't stopped ever since.
Now, you've been playing with some pretty well-known artists. Would you like to share who you play with?
Over the time, I've had the absolute pleasure to play with a few of the people who are, well respected in Australia's music scene. The last 12 years, I've been working with Glenn Shorrock for, it is 12 years now, in his acoustic show and in his live band show. And that's been an absolute hoot. It's allowed me to see all of the country and even get overseas and go to places I never thought I'd get to.
Did you go to London and New York with Glenn when
yeah.
that lovely
Clive Palmer,
Clive
Mr.
Palmer.
Palmer.
Mr. Palmer
put on his
your
Titanic
Clive.
shows, his gala dinners, one in Macau in China and one in New York on the USS Missouri and one in London at the Natural History Museum.
Good on you, Clive Palmer, supporting
Yes,
Aussie
that's
music.
what I said to him. Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer, for letting me have this opportunity.
Been touring around a bit, playing with Shorrock and
Yeah,
some
playing with
others.
Shorrock, and then got to play through that association, got to play with Brian Cadd and sometimes Joe Camilleri and Ross Wilson, and even done a bit with Darryl Braithwaite when the Shorrock band has sort of been employed to cover a few artists at a time, and got to, we backed Jimmy Keys, dear Jim,
Oh,
and
bless.
Darryl.
Bless.
Yeah, once I saw the Beatles and saw rock stars, I just thought, it's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to have long hair one day.
And that day's come.
Long hair and play guitar or play drums or play,
Yeah.
just play it. I think that was the initial immature sort of attraction. But as I got older and started to hear that, use my ears, which Gerry said to me, you've got good ears, make sure you use them, learn off records and all that sort of thing. And that's what I did.
So you played along to records.
Oh,
Were
I
you
did,
self-taught?
Yeah. Yeah, Gerry just taught me a couple of chords. And he said, the rest is up to you. Just differentiate between a major and a minor. If you can do that and then use your ears, you'll be right. Harmony-wise and guitar-wise. And it sort of was the greatest bit of advice I'd ever had. So he was he was the one teacher.
Now, Gerry, for those of you that may not know, was Pip's older brother who sadly passed away. And Pip actually brought out an amazing album, and I'm going to get it out because I just happen to have it here.
Now that's good time.
See that?
Suze?
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Rejoyce. Now,
Tribute to Gerry.
tell us about the album, because I had the privilege of being at your CD launch, and
yeah.
it was absolutely an awesome experience.
Yes, it went off. I was really happy with the CD launch, really. We had a great crowd and the band were fantastic, all up there and supported me. This came about, there's two of my songs on this and the rest are Gerry's, because just before he died, he really expressed a wish to do his own CD and get some of his music out there. So it's taken 10 years, but I finally thought I'm going to do that one day for him, and that's how it came about. So I did it with a good old friend of Gerry's called Alf Klimak.
Yep, I met Elf.
You've met Alf?
Yeah, I met Elf.
Yeah, and he did a wonderful job. We just got together over at his place. He's got a little studio at his home, and we just went hard at it, and it was fantastic. It was so easy.
Which are your two on this? Because
Isn't It Great to Be Alive
Oh, I love
is
that.
one, which I wrote when I was 15.
15?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
a good decade ago.
And the other one is Hidden Motion. Yeah, I like that, Susie. Good on you. And the other one is Hidden Motion. Yeah, which I wrote in about 1983, around Joyce when we had the Joyce Brothers.
So you played with Gerry?
Yeah,
and
we
with
had the
Joyce
Joyce. I
brothers?
started playing with Gerry and Tinsley Waterhouse Band in 1981, and then we formed the Joyce Brothers after that,
Yeah.
and we played for the next 8 years. Yeah.
This is an awesome album. I've been playing it on Southern FM and I get a lot of feedback.
No, it's very
Wrokdown,
nice, yeah.
we really love it. Catcher in the Rye, that's
Yeah,
an
great
awesome song.
Yeah,
That
one
was
of Gerry's.
Yeah.
One Gerry wrote the music to the lyrics of Ian Shaw, who was our old singer from the Joyce Brothers,
Yeah.
who came to the launch. He
That's
sang on that
right.
one. Yeah, I love that song.
Absolutely.
It had never been performed until the launch.
Yeah.
Gerry wrote it, but he actually just recorded it on a little 4-track, but that's as far as it went. So it was a thrill to be able to bring that to fruition with Alf
Yeah.
and then perform it. Yeah, it's a great
Absolutely
song.
awesome.
All about John Lennon.
John Lennon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Pip Joyce, I love you, and I look
love you
forward
too,
to
Suze.
seeing you play, and I
Great.
just can't wait. And we'll be back sooner.
Yep,
Yeah.
you bet. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for having me on, Suze.
Rockdown over and out. Bada boom. See? That's Pip, though.
Well, you know, I actually, Pip, I don't know why you didn't send me one. I'm a bit hurt. But I can tell you that we've had many a great night playing in bands together. He is one of the finest guitarists in the country. Yeah. Pip Joyce. The album is called Rejoyce.
Rejoice.
Soozie, you're looking understated as
yeah,
ever.
No. I need a bit of spray or something in my hair, I don't know.
You love this girl.
I love you, Wayne.
Would you please thank our girl out and about,
Yeah.
Miss Soozie Pinder.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. What a fabulous show. I'm with the gorgeous Ronnie Charles.
You're so
Well,
generous.
you may go, ooh, have a look at this. Woo, woo, woo. You look the same.
The old cassette days.
The old cassette days.
Yeah, and cassettes are coming back.
Cassettes are coming
Except
back? Are you
Cassettes,
sure?
I saw one the other day, and they look exactly like these cassettes, except they're digital. They're actually like a DAT. And they look like that, except they'll hold 11,000 titles.
But what do you
and
put
I
them in?
said, who has 11,000 titles?
What do you put him in?
Well, the player's another story.
I'm not allowed to touch any buttons or any knobs.
That's right.
Let's get back to you.
Yeah, so that...
We were in London. You have just scored a great deal. And
and I did Tommy.
and of course Ronnie did Tommy.
And
So-
that led on to this, which was Lou got after the success of Tommy, he had a bit of a thing about doing more stuff with the London Symphony, and Eric Clapton was just about to release 461 Ocean Boulevard, having come out of his drug cloud of Derek and the Dominoes. And there was a big push. In fact, Pete Townsend was instrumental in getting Eric back together, and through actually a special show the same week as Tommy at the Rainbow in London. And Lou said, Ronnie, I've got this great idea. Let's do a version of Layla with the LSO, because Layla, even though you used to hear it all the time, was never a single. It was always just played off the album. So Lou thought it would be a great idea to do it as a single. And some of his, because Lou was an American, and one of his connections in the States was relaunching the 20th Century label in America and consequently around the world. And this album came about because of that. And it was probably really a point of sale album, hence the thing I showed you before about, I don't know if we can see this, but Prestidigitation means sleight of hand, and that's what that actually does. So this was part of the promotional package that they took to the States to launch the label. And we got a lot of airplay from the single, which was Layla, and that's what brought this about. So what I want to do with this, Lou Reisner sadly died in 1977, which was very unexpected. And the rights to this album actually referred to the artist. So I actually own the album, the mechanical rights, and I've sat on this for years as sort of just something that I'd done. But as we now know, recently vinyl's had a resurgence, and I
Big
thought,
one.
what a nice way to redo the album would
And
be
to also celebrate him.
to celebrate him. But one thing that, you know, like all musicians, artists, when they do an album, there's always something that you go, oh, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I could have done that. Well, by virtue of post-mastering, because in the days when vinyls were made, you mixed the record in the studio and it went straight to the mastering, which was just cutting the album. Or in the case of a cassette, it was just copying the master. of course, in the last 20, 25 years, now we go to computer and we do what is called sweetening, which is borrowed from the film world, and we trick up, you know, whatever our masters have. We feel they need a little bit more treble, or, you know, maybe a little bit of volume change, all that sort of thing. So that's what I'm doing, and have done, rather, with the album. I've just finished remastering it, and I'm going to put it out again on vinyl and CD.
We've got another segment, which is fantastic because we have so much to talk about, but we're actually going to have a look at a clip from a band called Uploaders.
Uploaders.
The Uploaders. Here we go. Tell me what you think, Ronnie.
Are you ready? Ready for love? Are you ready, baby? Now your time has come. Are you ready? Ready for my love? Soon as we have feeling, I feel a little strange. I get so excited every time you call my name. Now there's something that I wanna say. Gotta be love that makes my day. I wanna be the one you love till your dying day. So you better get ready. Ready for love. I gotta be the one to love you till your dying day. But there's something that I wanna say. That if you want my love that way, I gotta be the one you love till your dying day. Till your dying day. It's a strange sensation, the way you light up the room. It's a realization, I'll never love a man for you. That's something that I wanna say. If you want my love in that way, I wanna be the one you love till my dying day. Are you ready? Ready for love? I say you ready? Ready for love? Now there's something that I wanna say. It's gotta be love that makes my day. I wanna be the one you love till your dying day. So you better get ready. Ready for love. I gotta be the one to love you till your dying day. But there's something that I wanna say. That if you want my love that way, I gotta be the one you love till your dying day. Till your dying day. Ooh, you better get ready. Ooh. Ready for love? Are you ready? Ready for love? I said you're ready, babe. Ready for love?
Welcome back on with Ronnie Charles. Ronnie, we've just been hearing about this fabulous remastering of
Yeah, so it's Prestidigitation.
Yeah.
Prestidigitation.
I'll
You think it'll
just,
catch on?
well, it sounds very American, that word, prestidigitation.
Oh, it probably does.
Anyway, I want to
Anyhow,
know...
well, I want to leave it in its original form. I mean, I could
No,
have
you-
easily called it Ronnie Charles with the London
No, leave
Symphony.
it like that,
it has to
because in
be-
actual fact the title is so hard to pronounce, it
the
could
same-
become an actual...
And the
sort
same
of-
with the cover. You know, I don't know whether I'll, you know, expose myself like they did with the back part of the inner sleeve, which is this sort of, you know, very rock and roll looking thing. But, so I don't know if I'll do all that, but
I like it both ways.
perhaps like a photo now.
What are you up to now?
So once that's going to be released through Sandman, as I say, on CD and vinyl,
Yep.
and that should be very soon, actually.
Okay.
So watch out for that. In the meantime, I have my band, the Slick Licks Band.
Say that fast.
Slick Licks, Ronnie Charles Slick Licks Band, which has Dave Herzog, who did all the guitar on Underbelly, and Jeremy Allsop on bass. Although we do, you know, I do sort of have to circulate musicians. These guys are high demand, but yeah, Andy Burns on keyboards, and various drummers.
Well, the thing is that you, Dave Herzog, Jeremy Allsop, Andy Burns for a start.
Well, they're all old
amazing
mates, you know.
musicians, yeah.
Yeah, and like yourself and I, we did a lot of jingle stuff in the late 80s, early 90s, and these guys were integral parts of the family that produced all sorts of jingles during that time.
In the good old days.
And that's how we made our connections, really. And now we're sort of sitting back and thinking, what would we like to do? And what I'd like to do with this is something that's in a groove-orientated, slightly retro, but bluesy sort of stuff.
Any originals?
There will be originals in there. I've got a back, you know, I've got sort of
Bit of a catalogue.
bit of stuff there that, you know what it's like. There's plenty of stuff that you've done, I'm sure, that's unheard.
Yep.
And I have stuff that's unheard. There's also a couple of tracks I did with Chris Copping from Procol Harum. He was also a jingle writer in Australia. He lives in Australia now.
Is he
and
still
I'd
on
like
one
to-
of those little islands somewhere?
That's right, up there on Magnetic Island.
That's right.
In his retirement, but yeah, there's a few things I'd like to get out there. Unheard Ronnie Charles.
Absolutely fabulous. Now, at the moment, I'm hoping that I'm correct. Melbourne is having a little bit of a resurgence, and there are fabulous venues that are opening up for all of us. When I say all of us, it's like
Well, for live music.
for live music, and every week there seems to be a new venue happening. Some of the ones that are really kicking goals, for example, like I guess the Flying Saucer, gorgeous little venue, and the
Lucky 13 down in Moorabbin. Excellent little venue. Yeah, there's
Caravan?
Caravan Club, all these, and they're opening that one in St Kilda, which is about time St Kilda had, you know, some, other than the Espy, some
I don't know about
genuine
that.
music.
Which one's that?
The Metro, is it? Metro, which is behind the old Army and Navy Club, which
But that used to be.
the same with the Flying Saucer. I mean, left to the RSLs, they're not very good at actually, you know, running a venue. And people have worked in RSLs, but we've all found that, you know, that they really, you don't get much help from the actual RSL. They'll give you the room, but they do nothing. But I think the approach that the guys from the Caravan Club is the right approach. They've come in and they've done it the right way. They've put good acts, expensive acts on sometimes to launch the venue, and then made sure that the production and all that sort of, so that people actually get what they pay for when they come and see somebody.
Yeah.
Like here.
Like musically.
I think they've taken the template from venues like this, which is where, you know, Australia has always been a little bit backward in this area, I think, that we've never had really good venues that are actually well fitted out, we'll put it that way, as far as what the bands need and
what's
what
already
the
here.
audience and what the audience deserve to hear, you know. And the Caravan Club's a very good example of that.
Where are we heading with music?
Well, I just read yesterday that downloading has now surpassed CD sales. So CDs and downloading will have their segment, but vinyl is, particularly in America, back with a vengeance. Vinyl is going to head towards about 30% of the market. The major record labels love it because they have all that catalogue stuff going way back that they can pull out. You can't download a vinyl. So vinyls have a touchy-feely intrinsic value of their own. And
The album cover, the artwork,
the whole thing.
being able to turn over.
And the younger audience have really catched on to that. And I know from various like Vinyl Solutions and people like that most of the people who are coming in to buy stuff are a younger crowd because they have discovered the magic of vinyl.
I can't say it, but say it again for me.
Prestidigitation.
So we're going to see that. Ronnie, a pleasure. Thank you
Always a
for
pleasure.
coming back to be with us. Now tonight we're going to take you out with the fantastic Robert James Kirk Band, and I think they're called the Sisters of Sin. And guess what? We had an interview on earlier with the gorgeous Pip Joyce, and you wouldn't believe who's in the band.
Pip.
Pip.
Wow.
And his fish.
Wow.
There's a long story there, but we'll say good night. Thank you everyone for watching Wrokdown. Thank you for being here. Ronnie Charles. The gorgeous Soozie Pinder. Thank you to Pip Joyce, and we're going to have Robert James Kirk.
Professional high grade, no home pay. I can be a spark if you're my type. And we can stumble, fumble, rumble for the rest of the night. One time. I might come back when you least expect. Respect. Lay down your guard, I'm a hut to the right. And we can stumble, fumble, rumble for the rest of the night. for the rest